Welcome to the Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros, powered by AspireByte, hosted by Mike Fierros. Real life stories, real careers, real world experience. Each episode brings you honest conversations with people working across the tech field, from cybersecurity and information security to IT, sharing lessons learned, challenges faced, and what it truly takes to build and sustain a career in tech. Let's get into it.
Cyber Tech Podcast, inside the minds of everyday IT and cyber pros. But first, before we start episode number 29, be sure to subscribe to the AspireByte YouTube channel where we share full podcast episode clips and tech-focused content. And while you're there, like, share the videos to help spread the word. You can also listen to every episode of the Cyber Tech Podcast on Spotify. If you've been enjoying the show, give a 5-star rating, drop a quick comment, and share it with others. It helps reach more people, keeps the mission going. Thank you for everyone that's already done that. Want to explore more? Visit AspireByte Hub at aspirebytecard.co. That's CARR.co. It's your all-in-one starting point for free resources, podcast links, merch, and more. Speaking about merch, check out the AspireByte shop at aspirebyte.myspreadshop.com to rep the mission whenever you go. Also, check out the new line in the AspireByte merch shop. It's called Marinate in the Craft. So for those of you who love steaks and love carne asada in particular, as we learn this tech, we definitely want to marinate in it. So check out the Marinate in the Craft line. Computer Technician is out, Network Engineer, and now available is the Blue Team merch that's now available. So if you love tech, you love merch, you want to rep the mission, definitely check out the AspireByte Thread Shop. All right, let's go ahead and jump in today's episode number 29. This individual, I definitely wanted to get on here. If you guys remember episode number 26, the Cyber Tech Podcast with Ben Crenshaw, this is definitely someone that's his colleague at Work Ed. She is also a nice cybersecurity career ambassador. Definitely want to get her on here. She's involved in tech education heavily and has tons of experience when it comes to AI and cyber. Without further ado, the individual I'm going to bring to you guys is Donna Woods. She is the head of cyber and AI partnership and a fellow NICE cybersecurity ambassador. How's it going, Donna?
Great. So great to be here, Michael. We really appreciate the work you do at AspireBytes. Absolutely love it. So glad there are many students and educators and industry partners listening in. You're doing a phenomenal work, and thank you for helping get the word out. We need you in places like this and platforms like this to help us spread the good word of everything that's going on.
Thanks. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, it's definitely something that the platform I'm building here, it's definitely much needed, I think. And thanks for your time, and thanks for coming on here.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Donna, for those that aren't familiar with yourself or your work, kind of explain a little bit back about your background and how you got into tech education.
Well, it was funny. The pathway was a little bit different for me, as it is often for any female involved in tech. I always loved math and science, but I was the generation that grew up, fortunately, with just technology really beginning a super boom. And what I mean by that, I grew up in the age and was just a little bit younger than Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak when they were presenting their ideas, and Bill Gates, right? And all this big tech boom. I mean, I had the Atari Pong game, and that was all the rage then compared to now. It was nothing. I wish I still had that an open game of the Atari Pong, but it was great. And my father, he was a quality engineer in aerospace. So seeing my love of science and math, he was really driving me towards that. And I got to intern a lot in the summer all throughout high school and just really loved it. Well, then all of a sudden comes this explosion with computing where we didn't have icons we could click on, but you had to write a line of code just to get into a C drive document, right? You had to get that line of code just to get to that. And it was really neat because their innovation, all of these critical innovators in the tech boom, were really speaking to our generation at the time. Like, your generation will have a computer in every household, where the older generation was laughing at them like, how would that be possible? Because the hard drive was the size of a refrigerator, right? Yeah. But it happened, and we were fortunate to be a part of their innovation and creativity. So that's what really sparked me from leaving the aerospace industry and really going full force into tech and computers and that whole field.
Oh man, that's, I rep in this. That's my dad's days right there. I remember he would talk about going to college and, these big, huge computers with this, what was it, like kind of cassette tape, if you will, and whatnot.
Floppy disk.
Floppy disk, yeah. And you know what, are you located in, I know you're located in California, Donna,
I am in
Northern California?
Southern California, but I'm not too far. We could easily get to Silicon Valley where it all happened.
Awesome.
but it was
You,
actually in Southern California where they had their idea explosion. They shared at what was called California Jam 1 and 2. It was a concert
awesome.
for college kids, and that's where they came and actually spoke at. So it was
Oh, that's
phenomenal.
awesome.
Yeah.
Those early days, you're talking about late 70s, early 80s, and
Right.
when the Macintosh came out, I was a little baby, but growing up, and I can imagine, your father in aerospace, and you're in this environment, colleagues and good friends of yours, maybe other family members are in this space, and it's kind of influencing you. How pivotal, Donna, is was that leading up into your getting into tech? Like how pivotal was that
Oh,
those days?
absolutely. It was without a doubt one of the most important moments because at that time there was not career technical education wrapped around or CTE, what they then
Mm,
called ROP programs or special programs in classes beyond computer engineering, right? Not
mm,
so much the way you see it today, definitely not coding the way you see it today. These were not specialty fields. And IT, as it expanded, or IoT, the Internet of Things, and as the
mm,
internet came about, as this conversion of technology came about, that's what developed then the coursework. So if the influence that both my father's career, the love of making the motherboards for the aerospace industry and
mm,
understanding diodes and PCs and how the chips all work together and how the CPU works in the brain. And even though we were designing for aerospace, it's still you're building this major machine that's doing great things. We were into space and we were doing things with space and the convergence of satellites just getting up there. I
mm,
mean, it was, again, there was an incredible convergence of technology. So it had a huge impact on me. The challenge came when I tried to take specialty engineering courses. There might be two girls in the classroom and 200 guys. And so they kind of laughed at you, like, what are you doing here? And you really had to prove yourself. But that was okay. The harder work, made me want to learn better. And proving yourself was, well, what technology is all about anyway.
I can imagine, during those days, late 70s, early 80s, and you're in this environment, and I would love to, if I was able to send a probe back into, even a few years before I was born, and just watch my dad and watch folks like yourself, Donna, in that era. I
Yeah,
would, or even just stand there and just watch, because those are the early days. This is before, tech education. This is
right,
before Macs were just,
right,
were blowing up in education space, and marketing, and in the digital kind of creative space, and such a rich, it's always a first time of something going on.
right,
Someone's doing it
right.
first. And so you're in that era and you're taking these classes, and I think that's really good context for those that grew up with just technology. Like they don't know nothing
Right.
about that, or they
The
just grew up with
history
Wi-Fi,
of it
the
all. Can
history.
you imagine
Yeah.
if I was able to have a podcast then? I mean, that would be so
Oh,
cool, right? To
oh, that would be
explain
cool.
the journey. It would have been amazing cool. But I'm so glad era of podcasts and social media and all
For
the
sure.
technology. I'm so glad that's here now because it is exposing the new generation or younger generation. It gets them excited. It gives them a creative platform. It gives them opportunities to explore and venture out in ways I never had.
Mm.
So I'm really thankful for that and innovators like yourself because it does make a difference.
Definitely does. It definitely does. And we gotta keep doing that. When you got into going through those programs, Donna, when you finally graduated, or finished your studies, what was the first thing that you wanted to do, or kind of step into that kind of the tech world, if you will,
Oh,
on your
great
own?
question. Initially, I started in the aerospace industry with it,
Nice.
pursuing QE, quality engineering with it. But as I entered into that field, like you said, computing was really coming about and they needed help and they needed more. They wanted to send you to extra training for computing, which changed my mindset to go more towards that instead
Nice.
of just focusing on the aerospace because they were trying to adopt, okay, here's some new software we have to implement, or here's some new tools. And the older generation, including my father, didn't understand it, didn't
Mm,
really want to adapt that easily, right? But you still needed to have the engineering mindset. You still had to have, of course, critical thinking. You had to know how to implement these tools. I can liken it best to right now what people are doing with the convergence of AI. They're really
mm,
struggling, right? Is this going to
sure.
replace me at work? How do I use this tool? What do I do with it? It was similar in that convergence and
Nice.
changeover. People thought they were going to be losing their jobs. How much was computing going to do? How do I have to resort my job to that? So then what clicked in me is that we need a whole realm of education in this. We need to be able to train
Mm,
people how to use these tools. We need to see as these tools were emerging and developing and changing quickly, right?
Mm.
Microsoft was seeing what they could do with Apple. Apple was looking at what they could do with Hewlett Packard and Dell, all these IBM, right? Everybody was trying to get on the forefront of it, knowing work, convergence, and dependence on one another, as well as their creativity. So a lot was happening, and that's
Mm.
what really led me to the education realm end of it.
Was that the moment, Donna, that you realized that wasn't just a subject for you? This is actually a mission for you. Was that the pivotal moment to be like, hey, this is it right
Absolutely.
here? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For a
Nice.
younger generation, for females, not just solely for
Yeah.
females, but really to help expose a generation, my generation and younger, as well as what I saw as real important, bridging that gap
Yeah.
between this emergence of technology and an older generation, because I could see my dad's frustration, right?
Mm.
No, I spent years developing my craft, right? And there was this gap. Same that we're seeing today, right? You see a younger
True.
generation eager for it. You see other people wait, and it's good to have that hesitancy. It is good to ask questions and critical questions, right? To make sure. But then people have to fill in that gap and make sure there's a bridge.
Donna, for a student listening right now who thinks cybersecurity sounds interesting but intimidating, what would you say to them?
Go for it. Well, in this way, what I mean is, yes, it may be intimidating. Obviously,
Mm.
I was going into classes and things. I had no idea what I was going to be confronted with. I have no idea what the expectations were going to be, but you don't know until you try. And you don't know until you push yourself into limits of why not try this? And it's okay to fail. It's okay to learn and fail because
Yeah.
believe it or not, technology is doing the same thing. It's not perfect on its first route out. And to
True.
that student, they may need your innovation and idea. You don't know if your idea or your critical question or your doubt about something may help them design it even better. And
Mm.
and that was the whole premise of Apple's design, right? It was the
Hmm.
consumer, it was the end user. You can have incredible minds building something, but if the end user has no understanding or can't adapt to it, then it's no good and you can't market it. So they had to understand, yes, we have creative genius inside this, but what's going to make this particular product really stand out to the
Mm.
masses? What's going to get the connected connection where they want to use it? And that's where I would say to students, it's not just about the piece. We need all your gifts and
Hmm.
aptitudes, right? We need the creative mind. We need the marketing mind. We need the critical thinker who's going to question everything, who's going to break things and be a disruptor in it. All those. So this is why in technology, in this moment,
Mm.
there's room for everyone. So I tell
True.
no students, don't be afraid. You have natural gifts and aptitudes that are needed now. And it's not one set role or one size fits all. It's we need the diversity of thinking, the
Hmm.
diversity of cultures, the diversity of just the knowledge base. And the big thing that everybody needs is just the desire to want to know, right? And want the
True.
knowledge and to help. For me, it's about serving the greater good. What can you bring to
Mm.
the table? What are your special gifts and talents? And even though they may have not discovered them yet, I used to tell this to my students all the time. You have your innate gifts and abilities, right? Just like we
True.
call the United States has the GRD, the GOP, and all this, the resources that they bring in. Well, each student brings in theirs too.
I remember being a student, and I was not a straight A student, or but I had teachers like yourself, Donna, when I was in high school. When you're a student and you're a teenager and you're in your rebellious years, you get told these things in class, and you don't appreciate till you're adult, till
Right,
after the fact. A year, it could be a decade, 2 decades later,
right.
and you remember that, like someone like yourself, Donna. And I remember that, like I remember specifically one teacher named Mr. Lerner. Shout out to Mr. Lerner if he's listening to this.
Shout out.
Yeah, he was a teacher. He was like 23 years old back then, but a very young man. But he was assigned to classes that were for students that were kind of, I wouldn't say lazy, but just in the wrong path a little bit, wrong
Mhm,
wrong, wrong
mhm.
mindset. And it's funny, I spoke to a school last year and I saw him after might have been 20 plus 25 plus years, and
Oh
he's like, "Are
man.
you Michael?" And it's funny to see him. And I was like, "Wow, last time I saw you, early 20s. He's like, yeah, that was a long time ago. And you know
Right?
what? And I think, and I'm sure you get those
Yeah.
talks too, Donna. And that's such gratifying for those teachers that are listening right now. Sometimes go through the walls and you hit yourself in the head. Maybe there's no support at your local school, but when you feel satisfied when you hear these students like myself and telling my old teacher, Mr. Loma, hey, you really helped me. He talked to me like exactly you were talking to me, and back
Yeah.
then I was like, calm down, you know what I mean? So, but
Right.
like, as an adult, you're like, man, I really appreciate that what he said.
Yeah, yeah, we have to we have that belief in our students. Of course, we have to, but we can
For sure.
see in them potential. And I do love hearing from students. I get emails or they'll connect with me on LinkedIn.
That's awesome.
It is so rewarding to hear whether large or small, whatever area and how they connected the dots. It's amazing and it's extremely rewarding, not just for the students, but for educators.
Mm,
But here's the question I always ask them, and I can see what you're doing with it, Michael, but how are you paying it forward? In
true.
other words,
True.
are you just the consumer of all the information? Are you also putting it out there for everybody else and taking it to another creative level? So we can't
True.
just be takers, right? Which is great. And that's our role as educators and teachers and facilitators to input into the students.
Mm.
But what the great reward for me is to see how they're using it and what they're doing it, paying it forward. In whatever capacity they're in, I love hearing their stories. Absolutely. Yeah.
Donna, how can teachers build industry aligned programs without overwhelming themselves?
Great question, tough questions, because teachers do feel overwhelmed.
True.
Oftentimes, the burden is put on them to make those partnerships real with the industry partners to help support their programs, right? Sometimes fund their
Mm,
programs, sometimes come in as mentors or provide what we call work-based learning opportunities, pre-apprenticeships, internships, paid apprenticeships. The critical role that partnership is so critical. I can't stress it enough.
mm,
We need the industry partners, but teachers do feel overwhelmed. And now with this huge convergence of AI, in fact, just last week, the US Department of Labor laid out the AI literacy framework.
oh,
Now,
nice.
they inside of this framework, they explained what employers need to do, but of course, there is a burden there on educators and teachers as well. And they do feel overwhelmed. Like, how can I teach my subject matter and then also try to be able to get industry partners and then deal with new
Mm,
technology and software and help my students because these students come in with incredible needs. Every single
true.
day when you greet them at the door, you never know the weight on their shoulders. And the
True.
teacher's first priority is what? The student before
Mm,
all this other external but valuable stuff. It doesn't mean it's not valuable. So, to the teachers out there and to the industry partners, please work on ways to collaborate. Industry partners, please step up. We know you're overwhelmed too. I mean, I would have to go out to chamber meetings and
mm,
Seroptos meetings and all these different community meetings offering what my students' knowledge base were and just to tell them what my students were doing in the cybersecurity classroom.
mm,
But we wouldn't go with an ask. We would not go with a financial ask. We would say, here's what my students can offer your small business. We can come help train your employees. And I would let my students do the
nice.
facilitating of the training. But we would tell the small business in our community, come on over into our lab. You have permission to come on after school. It provided work-based facilitation for my students to train their
Mm,
employees, for my students to hone their skills, but to train their employees on good cyber hygiene, good safety cybersecurity practices in the workplace, how to not open up those phishing emails, and it saved the employer or the industry having to have to pay for their employees to go to a conference or a special PD. So it was a great shared partnership. And I encourage all across the United States, please do this. Employers seek out their incredible, CTE programs, career technical ed programs,
yeah.
great cybersecurity programs in district, great pathways in different school districts, great
Mm.
IT departments, and they will connect you with these schools so that it can help your business, serve your business, but you're also serving a need in that classroom.
I know one teacher in particular I've been talking to, she's been trying to set up a lab and kind of network, kind of a
Mhm.
network type lab for students just can mess with stuff and maybe have like a virtual machine or like a cloud server and whatnot. For those, because you mentioned you did have a lab.
Ours was very unique, and I'll explain that in a
That's
little bit,
awesome.
but I'll go ahead
For
with your
sure.
question.
For tech teachers out there, they want to implement some kind of lab, if you will, whether it be computer lab, maybe a networking type lab where students can have these hands-on experiences. Because most of these students, don't know what it feels like to be in a SOC or maybe be a GRC analyst. I was trained very old school, difference between cyber and infosec. So,
Right.
they don't have that, or even just regular, general IT, that they don't have experience talking to end users and stuff like that. How can tech teachers in different school districts, maybe even colleges, universities, or even homeschooling, how can they make those steps to kind of have like a home lab or like school type lab where they could have their students do kind of hands-on
Great
work?
question. This has been a challenge across the United States, and I would even say globally. So, some school
Mm,
districts are developing a model where they're building a centralized lab or tech center that
nice,
students can come to from their different districts, including homeschool students, because I saw a lot of
nice.
homeschool students in my lab. For the teacher in a rural area, it becomes more challenging, right?
Mm,
And so sometimes the IT department or businesses will donate old hardware or software to get that lab started.
mm,
South Dakota had to be very innovative, right? Because they were so rural, because they wanted to become a one-to-one school district. Yet, how do they get that when they didn't even have the internet connection going? So it really is a diverse, so you have to think of really creative ways depending on the situation that that school district or that teacher is in.
nice.
What's your student population? What do you even have an IT department for your school
Mm,
district or at your site? What industry partners are in your area that are
mm,
willing to chip in and help out? But if the community comes together, sometimes it can be formed at the library, sometimes at a school, sometimes at a community college.
mm,
Whereas we started our lab work initially was taking our students to the community college lab with grants they had written.
nice,
And we would get transportation to do work there on Saturdays to see if students even had an interest in the program.
nice.
From that, we started writing our own grants. And with the what we call strong workforce program grants here in
Mm,
California, which was from the California Chancellor's Office, we were able to write 7 different very significant grants and obtain over $7.5 million, where we
wow,
built our own cyber innovation center on the high
that's
school
awesome.
campus. It was one of the first in the nation. And
Wow.
again, so we could serve businesses, but it took 5 years of laying the groundwork.
Mm,
It took a lot of people, a lot of belief in us. And
mm,
initially, people were kind of laughing at us. I'm in the Inland Empire. We're very low socioeconomic. People were saying, well, if they could have built that, they would have done it in Silicon Valley, right? Where all the
mm,
headquarters are. You've got Yahoo and Google and Apple. Well, if that was meant to be built at a high school, why didn't they build it in Silicon Valley? My question is, yes, why didn't they? And why not the Inland Empire? Why not our students? Why
true.
not Virginia? Why not South Dakota? Why not New Mexico, Texas?
Mm,
All these places. And all of a sudden, you have like a popcorn effect around the nation of teachers who have a belief, and city officials and industry partners and community colleges coming together and saying, yes, we can do this. And yes, we need to develop this for our community. So it just takes
mm,
a little bit of people believing in you and one another
true.
so that you're not in a silo, which oftentimes teachers feel,
True.
and leaderships in those district leadership officials, as well as partnering with city officials to believe in a vision and to make it happen. And then you
Mm.
need an educator to lead it. But it is possible, and I've seen it all over the United States.
That's such encouraging to hear that your story and how you built that, Donna, and you yourself and your colleagues. That's that gives inspiration for teachers listening to this podcast to be like, hey, maybe I can get there, and what's that old saying, Donna? Nothing worthwhile to take, is built in a day or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but it's so true. So your role at work, Ed, kind of explain the role right now that you have.
Funny that you should ask, because when I recently retired from teaching at the school district full time, I have been in education teaching. I'm still
Awesome.
teaching at the community college. Yeah, WorkEd had asked if I would come on as their head of cyber and AI partnerships, which I
Nice.
love because of facilitating, again, working with industry partners and so forth. But my role just changed this week, really interesting enough, with the
Awesome.
new development of what happened with the US Department of Labor and AI. I am now the specialist of AI in residence. So
Oh,
I'm
awesome.
doing a lot of research for them, still coordinating and working with faculty all over the nation, K through 20, meaning all of elementary, middle school, high school, and college, working with partners and helping facilitate that, but really doing a deep dive into some of the research
Nice.
into how we implement then this framework, this AI framework across the
Mm,
nation, and how we can better support education and education systems from superintendents to county office of education, the whole gamut to teachers in the classroom, right? So they're
mm,
not alone. It's really important. So when we speak at conferences, we're not there as a sales pitch. We're there to come alongside of school districts with their mission and vision, not work ed's mission and vision, but what can we do to support your
mm.
efforts in helping get out, you know, whether it's your CTE program, your technology, your computer science, and this, because we help them bridge that gap that I was speaking of earlier. It's really critical.
Yeah.
Connecting them to the industry, helping them with industry partners, helping them develop the work-based learning or work integrated learning, helping students establish, like work ed was one of my academic partners when I was the teacher in high school. I
Awesome.
would let them do my advanced externships, preparing my students for the paid apprenticeships that they were going to be able to apply for in the
Nice.
summer and with the college. So I wanted to give them an extra leg up, and really in work ed brought in industry partners, which were so valuable to, because again, work ed had a national recognition and had a reach of industry
Mm.
partners that I didn't, beyond my local community. That's what I love doing now with work ed. That's why I stand behind them and believe what they're doing, because I experienced it firsthand as an educator myself and saw the value that it brought to my students. So I love being able now to be a part of that team and bringing that out to other educators across the nation. Very exciting.
That's really exciting, and plus you've been in the spectrum, both ends of that spectrum as a teacher, work ed
Yes.
helping you, and then you're working at work ed itself. And I think the work you and yourself, Ben Crenshaw, are doing, that's really pivotal. And then also it also encourages me, being, kind of an industry facilitator locally where I'm at here in Arizona, for local teachers that reach out to me, get questions and
Mhm.
stuff like that. I think it encourages me as well to kind of, keep going, if you will, right? And where I'm located here, for those located in like rural areas where I'm located, I think it's pivotal for industry partners, for those professionals listening that do work in IT and cyber, or even infosec, or maybe in AI space. Definitely encourage you guys to, whenever you have time, right? Because we're busy, we might get alerts, and we might be on call and stuff, but definitely encourage you guys to help out those tech teachers out there in your local school districts, your community colleges. Maybe it's a homeschool group that needs help
Right.
with, what's
Right.
cyber and stuff like that. Encourage you guys to do
Right.
that for sure.
Well, and here's what's amazing about this, Michael. They no longer have to physically come into the classroom. We know time is a
True.
valuable commodity. And even coming into a classroom for a quick 10-minute segment based on a lesson and just sharing, hey, here's what I'm dealing with today, for that IT
So
professional to
true.
keep it real and said, this is what we're dealing with today. Here's what I planned on my day. Here's what happened when I got in. Boom. Students love that. And the
That's
teacher
so
loves
true.
it. Especially when the teacher can say, hey, we're going to be talking about this particular part of IT in this lesson. Can you
Mm,
jump in for 5 or 10 minutes? You can do that right from your office space, right? And say, yeah, and
that's
they'll
so
give you the
true.
time. You could even pre-record that for the teacher to let them share. But any little bit of help like that, it's so beneficial. And my students would eat it up. So you're absolutely
Mm,
right. There in Arizona, there's some amazing programs going on. It's booming, right, in all different parts of Arizona.
for sure.
And again, this is happening all over the United States.
Mm,
And we get to hear from educators all the time and industry partners. The industry partners say, I had no idea this was going on in the classroom, or this was going on in the education sphere. And the education saying, okay, we need to connect with the industry. So absolutely what you just said, industry partners, hear us now, call them up, reach out, teachers reach out.
yes.
When you hear about it, when you see about that event, do a quick 5-minute blurb, do a video screenematic of yourself, send it out to teachers, put it out there, say there are tons of websites that we can give you. Michael and I can both give you, right? That, hey, you can post it
For
here.
sure.
Send it out to us on LinkedIn. We'll help get it to all those teachers there. It's phenomenal. Part of what we do with the Nice Career Cyber Ambassadors, we have a
Love it.
website that hosts all of that. So we have many small industry vignettes of cameos, industry people sharing what their job is about, connections. This is just things we've built up over the last 5 years, even. So again,
Wow.
things that didn't even exist just a few years ago. Everybody's been working really hard to get all of these issues out of silos and really start building this together. So we're stronger nationally, and we're not leaving areas like yours, where you may be in Arizona right now,
For sure.
left out, right? It's so important. We
True.
cannot leave people out. Everybody must do this together. It doesn't matter if you're inner city in New York If you're in a rural area or an urban area like myself, we must work and share our resources together. That's critical.
That's true. That's true. And Donna, if someone listening today, whether a student, teacher, or cybersecurity pro, wants to take one action after this episode, what should it be?
One action. Oh my gosh, Michael, this is a tough question. There's so many great things. One action, purpose.
Awesome.
Decide, make one specific thing that you're going to do. And I would say, write it down, make it an actionable plan, take that step forward. For the student, take that step forward to start a club on your campus if you don't yet have one, right? Just a fun IT club, esports club, whatever it may be, just to get IT information, computing information out there, right? Start the club if there's not one yet. For the educator, many educators have been thrust into this position to cover like, oh, I'm a former English teacher, or math teacher, or science, and they just said I had to do this, and they come to the conference, where do I start? Okay, we've got tools to help you. We've got educational pieces to help you. We've got free curriculum across the nation that did not exist 3 years ago. There's lots out there to help you. And for the industry partner, yes, step up. We know you're really, really busy. Greatest asset they could bring to any educational system is just availing themselves either in a short period or for an advisory team member. We even need advisory team members as part of work ed, right? It's what makes our curriculum or what we do so valuable. So industry input at the education level, the college level, the private sector level, working with education, your input, your knowledge is so valuable, because they are on the cutting edge of the industry of having to deal with this constant evolution of changes. And if they don't advise us, how do we know how to grow, right? How does education know how to evolve with what industry needs? And this is why the partnership is so valuable.
That's so true. That's so true. And Donna, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I think you mentioned a lot of gold nuggets that, a lot of tech teachers can have this encouragement and the steps to take, and students that realize, hey, I can do this, inspiring them and
Absolutely.
whatnot.
Oh, it was an honor being here, Michael. Keep doing what you're doing. Hey, shout out to all of you and all the teachers out there. We shout out to you. We appreciate you. Industry partners, students, keep doing a good thing. It's awesome. We're doing a lot of great things together, and we can't give up. We got to keep moving forward.
Whether it be students, tech teachers, or maybe industry partners like myself that are trying to get a hold of you, where can they do that?
Oh, the best way they can reach me, two ways. They can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I check the
Oh,
messages all the time. So on LinkedIn, we can do that, or also at donna.woods@worked.com. Happy to respond to their questions or their inquiries
awesome.
there for work ed and seeing what we can do. We're at conferences, and they'll see a lot of that through LinkedIn. So we love connecting with them. We love connecting with students, industry, and educators all over. So thank you, Michael. Happy to reach out to them at any time.
That's awesome. And I'll make sure I'll put those links in the show notes for this particular episode right here, Donna.
Okay.
And those for you that enjoy this episode, definitely check out episode number 26 with Ben Crenshaw.
Yes.
Ben is also a colleague of Donna. And I love what you guys are doing over there, Donna. I think you guys are for those creatives out there and those in the profession, are looking at you guys, we see what you guys are doing, and definitely inspired others.
Well,
Me as
thank you.
well.
We have an amazing team at Work Ed. We love what we're doing. We love the students and the educators we get to work with. So thank you. An incredible team all over the United States. They're just phenomenal. And many of the students that we work with end up working on our team. We love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, thank you again. And this is episode number 29 with Donna Woods. And Donna, you have that new position you got?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's the specialist in AI, or AI specialist in residence, I should say. That's the proper way to say AI specialist in residence with Work Ed. And of course, reach out at any time for the nice cybersecurity career ambassadors. Anyone can be a part of that. Students, employers, educators, we need you to help get the word out.
Thanks again, Donna, and we'll see you guys.